Get them all.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 16th, 2025, and this is the Cottonwood Heights City Council work session. My name is Mike Wiggers, and I am the mayor as of today. Item number 2 on our agenda is a review of our business meeting agenda for tonight. And we will start, like always, we're very welcome with a pledge of allegiance. And I don't have any idea who wants to do it. Anybody want to raise their hand?
You.
No. She'd
be happy
do it
to.
for us.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. And then we will also have 3 minutes each for the city council committee reports. Item 4 is a citizen comment period that we'll have. Item 5 is a quarterly report of financial statements. Is this your quarterly report, Scott?
No, it's the annual financial.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I got it. Yep, our annual financial statement presentation from our finance director, Scott Jurgis. Awesome. And then we will have 8 legislative items to consider as a council tonight. First being item 6.1, consideration of ordinance 455 adopting the supplemental name for a street segment. This is actually a staff report, so we'll talk about it here in just a second. Item 6.2, consideration of ordinance 456 amending the general plan to include a water use and preservation element. This is also a staff report, so we'll talk about this in a minute. Item 6.3, consideration of ordinance 457 adopting the conception of controlled access to Big Cottonwood Canyon Road and Mineshaft Road. And this is also a staff report. Then we have item 6.4, consideration of resolution 2025-75 approving an amendment to a development agreement. Jim or Jared, who wants to talk about this? Jim, why don't you give us a little bit of background?
Sure, so let me get the Zoom. Can you let me in the Zoom, Matt?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I checked another.
Yay, thanks. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So this amendment is to the site plan exhibit that was included in a rezone development agreement. Here. Okay, here it is. Okay, so the last time the council saw this and approved it, this main driveway access for these townhouse units was on the east side. So the original intent was to have the existing driveway serving some condo units on a neighboring property be the primary entrance for this project. However, the owners of that HOA or condo driveway did not want to cooperate. So the applicant that owns this property has shifted the driveway to the west side of the project. So that's the most significant change, aside from cleaning up some of the language on the left-hand side here regarding the zoning setbacks and standards. Otherwise, the footprints remain in the same place. Engineering and fire and planning and zoning have reviewed this submittal and found that there's no concern with this new configuration. So that's what the council will consider tonight, is replacing the old site plan with this new version in the development agreement.
Did you say this had to go back through planning? It didn't, did it?
Not through planning commission, just the planning staff.
Okay.
Reviewed it
got
for
it.
compliance with code. So
Sorry.
How many homes are accessing that first drive again? I can't remember.
there's 6 units.
The one on the east?
Over here.
Yeah, that one. Right.
Um, that one I don't know. I think there's like
How
6 to
far
10.
is that new access from that old,
That
access
access
into
isn't
the
gonna go anywhere.
no, I mean, the driveway. How far is that from that other access?
Oh, I see. what you're saying.
From here.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's hard to see in that
I think I
the
just.
dimension. It's
With 6
about
units,
500 feet roughly.
Okay, I think it's just my mind working. I just didn't want to get traffic crossing each other if they're too close in the driveways, but if it's 500 some odd feet.
Yeah, so engineering did review for the proximity to the driveways, because there is a street here as well.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
proximity to this intersection and our engineers that reviewed it didn't find any
Okay.
significant concerns,
Okay.
primarily just because it's 6 units, so there's not gonna be a significant amount of traffic coming in and out. Primarily be morning and evening.
And it means there's one driveway instead of 6, which is what we want.
Correct,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The questions? That's all I've got.
There's 4 units back there.
4 units.
I think so.
Yeah, I can see 4 driveways here, but without zooming out, I'm not sure exactly.
4 separate parcels back there, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. So item 6.5, consideration of resolution 2025-76, declaring certain property surplus. Chief, is that you?
This is 6.8 or him.
Okay, was this,
This is just the certain property surplus.
so Ken Daly spent 23 years roughly with Salt Lake City, retired, came on with us, I think I said 2011, I think the actual time was 2009, he spent the remaining time with us, so in total, he has 40 years in law enforcement, he was with us almost from the beginning. He's a sergeant, he's been a very valuable member of the community department, mentored the young kids. He's retiring in a couple weeks. We'd like to award his badge to him and his firearm as is customary with us. And so we'd ask that you approve the also to, so
No,
Well, we
no,
don't-
well, you
so-
did 6.8, that's okay. I let you go. And now, the motorcycle.
6,
okay,
but we don't wanna say that out loud.
well,
It's,
along that same lines, this motorcycle was a prop during the play. It's a small electric motorcycle. Daly is our motor sergeant currently. He's a Harley guy, been so for his entire life. So we would like to surplus the motorcycle as well. And we'll buy it or award it to him. It'll be dressed like a Harley during his farewell.
Any questions? Matt, no questions?
No, I'm
Okay, good.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Item 6.6, consideration of resolution 2025-77, approving appointments to the Health and Heights Advisory Committee. Jared.
Yeah, so I just lost it. We had an interview, the resume was in your folder, it was a really good interview, and I'm trying to remember the name now, the new person, but we also are. With Shane also noticed that some of the members were following up, had either left or had not been appointed, so there's actually two members that we're appointing and then replacing. Obviously, Assistant Chief Brenneman with another, can't remember who was going in there now. Which officers represented then on the board, but.
Then reappointing.
Yeah,
ones who's-
reappointing ones that were expiring, so we're just kind of updating the whole board, we have one new appointment go on.
Mm.
So,
Questions? Okay, item 6.7, consideration of resolution 2025-7, approving an amendment to an interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County for track funding. And Matt.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, this is a funding we already have in place. It runs out this month. It doesn't run out, the agreement cuts off, but we're still in the process. So we've worked with Salt Lake County. They've agreed to an extension of the money we've already have coming in. So that's what this is. We just need your signature so we can get it to the council, county council now.
What is this money earmarked for?
This is for the west side Highland at La Cresta, that entrance, the city entrance
Okay,
portion down there.
Okay.
Highland Phase 3, we call it trail.
perfect.
Mhm.
Questions, comments? Thank you. Item 6.8, which Chief already talked about. So this is the awarding Sergeant Daly with his badge and firearm. So.
Yeah, I did intentionally to be.
That is okay, Chief. And then the last item that we'll do tonight is approve the consent calendar, which is the minutes for the City Council and Planning Commission joint work session of December 2nd, 2023. and 25. Okay. Back to our work session agenda. Item number 3 on our agenda today is a UDOT Big Cottonwood Canyon environmental update. I see yeah, I see a bunch of staff members from UDOT here, so I don't know if is it Erica that's gonna lead the discussion or Devin, is it you? Okay, well, why don't you come on up and we'll get the discussion going.
I don't know if you have the presentation ready or I can pull it up.
Should come up just a second. There we go.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Perfect, thanks. Well, thanks for having us here today. Really appreciate it. So I'm Devin Weeder. I'm a project manager at UDOT.
Yes, my name's Adam Shaw. I'm the Salt Lake District Ranger at the Wasatch Cache, Salt Lake Ranger District.
If we go to the next slide, I don't know if it's controlling. this.
Maybe. Sorry,
Nice.
get on the right screen here.
So this is the Big Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Assessment. We've had a couple other times, I think we presented here at least
Yeah.
once. We're out of scoping, so we now know what we're going to propose. So we're in the environmental assessment phase with, if you go to the next slide. We have 2 actions. We either have a no action or we have our proposed action. The no action is a little bit complicated on this one because parts of it were already proposed by Little Cottonwood, right? So those parts are the mobility hub at the gravel pit and the interchange at the gravel pit. We are slightly tweaking those in the proposed action, so they're in both. But this is the no action, which is basically just saying, what happens if we don't do anything outside of what's already been proposed? So that would be, everything that's on the regional transportation plan. That would be UTA keeps running their current bus service. There's no tolling in Big Cottonwood, and there's no improvements in Big Cottonwood. But you would see the gravel pit mobility hub get built, and you would see the interchange get built, but they would not serve Big Cottonwood. So that's the no action. If you go to the next slide, this is our proposed action for Big Cottonwood. It's an enhanced mobility hub, so it grew by 250 spots. It's the grade separated interchange, which moves slightly to the south to accommodate. We've been working with the developer on like how everything lines up, and so we just shifted it slightly south so it didn't impact the current development on the north end of the pit. This would be a transit busway that would sneak around the Port Union intersection, so the buses could go right up the canyon. Mid-canyon bus stop improvements, as well as tolling in the upper canyon, a bus priority lane from the fire station to Brighton, and then a resort bus stop both at Solitude and Brighton. If you go to the next slide, I get into more details on all those later. The purpose and need. So the purpose is to reduce wintertime traffic congestion on Big Cottonwood Canyon Road as directed by the legislature in Senate Bill 2 in 2023. The needs are, there's 3 needs. We need to decrease, so there is decreased mobility on the road during peak hours in the winter. So the measure to improve that is, our travel times improving with our proposed action. If we did nothing, we're projecting that you'd have up to, right around an hour travel time in the morning and 45 minutes in the evening. This isn't for like the worst day, right? So on the worst days, we already see this.
It's longer than that.
Right. But this is when we model it, we do it more like for above an average day, but not an average day. So that's why you're like, well, we already see this. Well, the worst days would be like, 3 times that, 4 times that. So what we're saying is on these days that we modeled, if we do this proposed action with the buses, with the tolling, we could bring those times down to 30 minutes or 24 minutes with the bus. And so, those are much more reasonable times. Like if you go out right now, actually right now maybe, and look at our sign, it'll probably say it'll take 24 minutes to drive up the canyon. And so that's what we're hoping is to be able to keep the road working as if, it's just flowing, right? There's no backup, there's no congestion. It's busy, but you're able to just drive up the canyon with minimal delay. If you go to the next slide. One of the measures and the needs is that we want to maintain the operational capacity of the road. So when we looked at the data and we modeled it, we found that right around 1,000 cars an hour can go up and down the road. But once you go over that, the travel times go up a lot. And so we're not trying to limit or, artificially limit the road. We want to keep it working, keep it functioning at its peak capacity while also making sure it's not going over that. And then that's when you get all the congestion, you get the decreased travel times. So that's we're hoping to do that by implementing tolling, which will, decrease that demand, get people to say, maybe I should ride the bus. And so that's the goal for that one. If you go to the next slide, there's also a really high existing demand for the bus service. When we look at the UTA numbers, they used to have a 15-minute bus service and they cut it back to 30. They're moving as many people with the 30-minute service as they moved with the 15. So that says to us that there is this demand for a bus service. And so if we are increasing that frequency and we are providing a place for people to park and we are providing a nice place for people to get out of the bus, we're going to see that, we're going to move even more people. Because if they're using it right now when it's uncomfortable and slow and infrequent, more people are going to use it when it is comfortable and frequent.
The tolling, Devin, would only be during peak hours, and do you have an idea of cost yet?
We don't have an idea of cost. Little Cottonwood said about $20 to $30. And that's probably pretty reasonable based on what you see the resorts do, right? They're right around the same place. But it's variable, right? So if we're seeing that we don't need to charge that much to get the right incentive, right? To get the people to move onto the bus or to get them to carpool, then we don't need to charge that much. And that's why we don't want to say it will be X amount of money, because if we're getting the right response, we don't want to charge we want to charge what we need to charge. And yeah, it would be we didn't say what the peak hours are because we know what they are right now, but in, the time horizon for this is 30 years almost. So in 25, 30 years, the peak hours could be much longer, they could be much shorter, they could be just different. So all we're saying is that when the road's not working, when those peak hours are, we are going to want to toll to get the right response so that the road does keep working. Next slide. And so here's some of the key resource impacts. When I talk to most people, I say, as you can see here, most of the impacts are at the gravel pit, so you might not care about it. But since I'm here, most of the impacts are at the gravel pit and you might care about it. It's around 30 acres of impact outside of the canyon. When I say outside, it's mostly at the gravel pit. So that's the interchange, the widening of Wasatch that has to happen. We're not adding lanes on Wasatch. It's just for the interchange, for the ramps, for all of that. That's, Wasatch gets a little wider, but we're still maintaining 2 lanes each direction with 1 center lane. That's, the mobility hub, the roads inside the development that we have to build for the mobility hub, as well as the transit way to get the buses around Fort Union. So that's all those impacts outside of the canyon. I intend to work very closely with Cottonwood Heights, staff and the mayor, and make sure that we're, all in alignment with how this happens, because I don't want to be stepping on your toes and, trying do anything that might dictate how that development grows. I want to make sure that we're in lockstep and, we agree on how this interchange and these roads get built in the development. Most of these others are stuff that's inside the canyon, right? We may have a change to the forest plan for the Solitude stop. One key element, we are not relocating any homes or businesses. We are only buying 1 full parcel, and that is a parcel that has no home on it. And it's actually mostly owns the creek, because we're gonna have to do a realignment of the creek in the upper canyon. And we will have 11 partial acquisitions for the mobility hub and 21 for in-canyon improvements. I believe all the partial acquisitions for the mobility hub are the same owner, which is the owner of the gravel pit. If you want to go to the next slide. Here's just some more, key takeaways. There could be impact to Columbia spotted frog and to the Bonneville cutthroat trout. We will have some disturbance to streams, ponds, ditches, but we're trying to minimize those and mitigate those where possible. And we will be adding some hard road surface, about 18 acres, but once again, that's mostly in the gravel pit, not in the canyon. And we will have visual impacts, most notably at the gravel pit and at Solitude, where at Solitude, we're going to be removing a stand of trees to build a bus stop. And then the gravel pit will become, part of it, the gravel pit will become a parking area. So if you go to the next slide. This is a detail for the enhanced bus service. We're thinking that initially, we want to have 10 to 15 minute bus service. So that's at worst getting back to what UTA had, if not, 5 minutes better. So that's either a doubling or a tripling of the current bus service. We would operate very similar to UTA, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. since Brighton has night skiing up there. The exact operation will still need to be determined as we go forward and work with our partners. Next slide, please.
So Devin, the Little Cottonwood EIS, I thought said 5 minutes every for the enhanced bus service, right?
Yes, that's the 2050 time. So yeah, I guess I should say in 2050, we think right around 6 minute service or 12 minute if you go direct to Inch Resort.
And that'll be based on
Just demand.
just demand.
Right, so yeah, there's nothing really between when we start and when 2050, at some point in there, we'll get to that service based on how the demand is
Okay.
growing. Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll just, keep buying more buses. Because the only thing, once we build this all out, the only thing we would need to do to increase service is buy more buses. There's no other infrastructure upgrades.
You don't know what technology is gonna be like. None of us know even 5 years from now, but there's a technology where you can reserve a seat, so you're a user. And you're going to get a seat on the bus that's coming up or down. Is that gonna be considered or?
Yeah, I mean, we're
That's
open
why I
to,
would use a bus if I knew I had a seat.
right, and we're like, that's what Cottonwood Connect was something that the county and UDOT partnered on. And that was something that we heard was really nice. You could buy your ticket ahead of time and know you had a seat. I'm not against it. It's just when we think about it like a public bus service, like, does that mean that we have to have an attendant that's like checking tickets? Like with this being a really high throughput service, we have to weigh like, that would be really nice, but also if you're like slowing the bus service to check tickets to, make sure that you're supposed to have this seat, you're supposed to have that seat. We kind of have to weigh the balance
I
of,
know, I was just thinking the numbers, like, example in London, you tap on, tap off.
Sure.
So they know you're on the bus, or they know that you were supposed to be on the bus.
Right.
Something like that.
no, and it's a good point. Other people have mentioned it. It's not off the table. It's just something we'll have to talk about as we go forward.
I think if you ever want to get families to use it, you have to have
I
that,
think so.
because
too.
you're not gonna take your little kids and,
And
fight
wait for
crowds.
45
Right.
minutes
It's just not gonna
in the
happen.
freezing cold, right?
Right, and that's one part. All the pickups and drop off, well, all the pickups will be inside of the parking garage, actually underneath, so you won't be freezing. The drop offs at the resorts will be outside, so.
That's why
That-
I'm bringing my 3 little kids home, waiting in the snow, trying to get them on a bus, would probably just.
So I'll show you the
Okay.
resorts bus stops, we'll get to that point. This is the priority lane that, it's a bus lane at the top of the canyon, which is where we saw on, an average day, we're having backups. So on an average day, by building this bus lane, we can save 5 minutes on the round trip time. And I think it was a 90th percentile day or 85th percentile, so not like the worst day, but a pretty bad day, you save almost 20 minutes on the bus round trip time. Just by putting this 1 mile of lane in.
Wow.
And so for me, as thinking about trying to ride a bus, that's where if you see a bus pass you and you sit there for 15, 20 more minutes, you think, maybe I'll ride the bus next
Yeah,
time.
fair enough.
Because all that queue is people trying to park at Brighton. Like there's no other reason it exists other than it takes a while to park once it gets backed up. And so that's why we proposed this, and that's also why we didn't extend it further down the canyon. We would get some benefit from having to go further down the canyon, but the benefit drops off quickly. We start to gain a minute here, a minute there, versus the large benefit we get from having it in this small area. And this is
Back
where,
up at the S curve too.
yeah,
It
and
poses a huge problem there.
the S curve is more of a geometry issue. Like a bus lane wouldn't fix it. We'd need to like realign the whole road, which is always possible. So maybe.
I appreciate all of this thoughtfulness and I'm blaming it on the kids, but probably just me, I would not wait in the cold.
Yeah.
To get a bus, so
Right.
to your point.
And I think that's something that we need to take into account is that, and that's why also partly why we're not saying like the road's closed, right? We can't close the road because of federal regulations, but we also just want, it's there, we should use it, right? And so some days there may be a cost to use the road, but we want to make sure that's still an option.
Sure.
Go to the next one. Yeah. So here's some of the mid canyon bus stops. Adam will speak on part of this, but the main intent for these is to provide access to these trailheads in a safer, like more comfortable way where the blue that you see is it's just concrete paving. It's so that these are ADA accessible, so there's an actual place for us to, plow and scrape off, so you can actually get out of the bus and have a landing to get on rather than being dumped on the shoulder in a snow pile. Adam, if you wanna talk about these.
Sure. So these two are specifically developed and revamped because we already see a lot of demand for people to travel to these two locations. One is Cardiff Fork, which is the right as you kind of get out of the narrow part of the canyon, it starts to open up. And then Spruce is a really popular backcountry skiing and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and snow hiking trailhead. So both of those would see revamped, revitalized bus stops, both for the uphill direction and the downhill direction. Would also see some revamped parking at the Cardiff area to accommodate the buses. One of the features that we're specifically interested at both at both of these locations is getting the bus off the roadway, getting it out of traffic so that it doesn't create a backup. When a bus is just able to pull over somewhat to the shoulder, you get people stopped behind, you have more congestion. So getting the buses off the roadway really helps with free traffic flow. Also at Cardiff, there would be a double vault toilet that is proposed for the north side of the parking of the highway where the parking is. So people who are parked over there would have a facility to use as well. There's already a plumbed toilet there on the south side of the road at Cardiff. So that would just be augmenting the toilet facilities there and in anticipation of more people being there. Spruce's already has a restroom that a lot of people use. It's a heated plumbed restroom. So anyway, those are the features there in the Mid Canyon bus stops for trailheads. For people who aren't going all the way up to the ski areas, we still have a public transit benefit for those folks. Go to the next one. Silver Fork, just below Silver Fork Lodge, would also be getting a revamped bus stop, same features, the shoulder or a dedicated platform or unloading and loading spot, gets buses off the roadway, allows for free traffic flow. And then Silver Lake, yet another cross-country ski area. That location would also have its own dedicated bus stop. Right now, sometimes people can get on and off, but it's not a dedicated bus stop. It kind of depends on the willingness of the bus driver to let people.
The driver.
Yeah. So in this scenario, the Silver Lake area gets a dedicated bus stop where people can get on and off. They can go to the Brighton store. They can walk across a dedicated crosswalk to get over to the cross-country ski area at Solitude Nordic Center. So it provides a benefit to people who are not necessarily going to the alpine ski areas.
Okay, so this is probably a lot of what you're interested in, which is our current concept for the mobility hub parking structure. You can see there in dark gray are some of the roads that, when I was working through the developer, trying to, align our roads with their roads so that we aren't building additional roads that are, would be rebuilt in the future. That's how you would access the mobility hub, which is in white. So that's the actual parking structure. It's about 1,750 spaces. It would be about 4.5 acres just for the parking structure itself. And that's about 14 bus bays, which we've planned for extras so that UTA can have valley routes coming in to drop people off or take people from there. And they don't need to just drive their car to get here. They can also take a bus.
So is the spot in stone now? Is it?
It's not. Yeah, so it's still in flux. We hope to nail something down soon, but we haven't purchased anything.
Okay.
And yeah, so the exact location may change. And we're going to make that clear in the environmental document. If you want to go to the next slide, this is the transit way, just the mouth. You can see the orange is actually a pedestrian path. So there's a pedestrian path that comes all the way up along Wasatch from Little Cottonwood Canyon. And I wanted to make sure we had that connected through this little choke point up into the gravel pit so that when that development comes in, we can have a really good pedestrian connection through both sides. So that you can, walk across Fort Union, you can cross the Big Common Creek, make it past the water treatment plant, and then get up into the gravel pit development. And this also is the bus only transit way, which would allow the bus to not, like, basically avoid Wasatch and go straight up into the canyon. And there would be a bus signal in the canyon that would only turn when the bus approaches to allow it to get up the canyon.
Before you leave this slide, could you just help us to understand what those who are cycling across here, those who are trying to go up the canyon, how will you facilitate those that are bicycling either to get up mine shaft or to go on up the canyon?
Yeah, we're actually not changing that at all with this plan. This is just for that northern side. And planning for the connections, that all those changes that would happen with the widening of Wasatch. All the actual changes at the intersection,
With phase 2 of.
which is phase 2 of the low conduit EIS.
You hope to build this during a phase 1
Yeah.
period?
Yeah, this would be, because this isn't phased, this is all just the big conduit EA. So there is,
It's
yeah,
completely detached
completely
from the
separate.
record of decision. and
It
the-
is. Yeah, completely separate environmental decision. So here's a render or a draft of one of the resort bus stops. We don't have a final design for those because each one will be different. So the one at Solitude will need to match what Solitude looks like, and the one at Brighton will need to match what Brighton looks like. And that's working with the Forest Service with their, these will be on Forest Service property, and we need to meet their aesthetics guidelines. So this is kind of just a mock-up of what it could look like. But basically, it's going to have, it's going to be heated, it's going to have lockers, there will be tables, there will be benches, there will be bathrooms for the public. There will also be bathrooms and lockers and a waiting area for drivers. So that drivers can get out, have a separate bathroom. That's something that UTA requires, and we think it's a really good idea to keep those all separate.
Brighton and Solitude giving feedback on those bus stops.
Yeah, we've worked really closely with them for 2 years, and they are very much in support. Especially at Brighton, where you'll see we're actually taking part of their parking. They've been a really good partner. We've worked with them really closely so that we both feel like it's a benefit.
Maybe it's just an oversight. I don't see where it indicates there'll be tables.
Yeah, I mean, the exact layout, we planned for there to be tables. There's a whole architectural report in the environmental assessment. It's one of the appendices, and that kind of goes through all that. Yeah.
Because lunches, many people say they feel like they have to drive because then they do their, they sit on the
Right.
vehicle or in their vehicle to eat lunch. So I just wanted to
Yeah, we
make
do.
sure that was.
Yeah, we have that shown, and we have a bunch of different potential layouts, and a few of them have tables. Yeah. I can't even, that's probably like a 30 to 40 page architectural report, so there's a lot of stuff in there. If you want to go to the next slide, we have some renderings of Solitude, because right now, as I mentioned, it's a stand of trees at Solitude. And this would be, taking out that stand of trees. But one of the, when we looked at locations for these, one of the main goals was to keep them near the road and outside of the resort parking. Because every time you go into the resort parking, you're losing time on your bus headways. You're, potentially just getting stuck for 30 minutes. And every time you get stuck, it means that we're not hitting our headways. It means we're not hitting our frequencies. And that can mean that we're having to spend more money on buses, more money on drivers to try to meet those frequencies. And so even though we're having an impact here to the environment, we think that it's a good trade-off in order to hit the goals of providing more transit in the canyon. We have tried, we're more than 100 feet away from the creek. We're trying to be making sure we're 50 feet away from any tributaries. We're trying to make sure we're following all the ordinances, and where possible, we're going to mitigate our impacts. But this, I'll let Adam talk more about how we're going to permit these.
Yeah,
How we
so
propose to.
the intent here is that since at Solitude, since the bus stop is outside of the ski area, we don't want to make it look like there's any sort of expansion of ski resort boundaries. That's something that we've heard from the public, that is a dynamic that they don't support. So the thought is that UTA would have the special use permit, and they would be permitted to.
Or you mean UDOT?
Oh, did I say?
You said UTA.
I meant UDOT, I'm sorry. that they would have the permit, the special use permit, they would to construct and operate this location. Same would hold for the Brighton location as well. Even though it's within Brighton ski area's special use permit boundary, it's a non-exclusive use. So we can have additional permits stacked on top of one another there. And it allows for it allows UDOT to hold the permit there, again, as opposed to having the ski area do this, have yet another permit there.
So, and this is a good point. So the enhanced busing for this Big Cottonwood EA is done through UDOT, not UTA.
Yeah, we haven't made a total final decision, but it is leaning that it most likely will be UDOT operating it.
And is this more because UTA doesn't want to do it?
No, not necessarily. It's, you know, they've been exploring contracted service. Right now they have the Canyon service, which is a contracted service. And this is a very hard service for them because it's not year round. And so for them trying to staff up, staff down, move buses around, you know, they don't want to just have buses sitting around doing nothing all summer when they need, because this is a very frequent service for them, especially at 15 minutes. So it's just trying to find like, who's the best to operate it based on, you know, the capabilities and like alignment of that organization. And so that's why it's just a hard service for UTA.
Yeah, I know, I just don't see how it's gonna be easier for UDOT. than
Right.
UTA.
Well, I think
You know,
there's
it's
just
the
more
same-
flexibility.
it's the same-
There's just more flexibility.
Okay,
Because they, you know, have union drivers, they have a lot of union contracts.
UTA does.
UTA
And
does.
UDOT would.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
go through units.
State employees cannot be part of a union. Just, but we not allowed.
Hmm.
So,
And that's why they consider UTA not state employees.
yeah, because UTA is a quasi-governmental
Yeah,
agency,
yeah.
which sounds like it's a real term.
One of the other features at Solitude is there's a pedestrian walkway from the bus stop across the creek to get to the Moonbeam base facility. So it really, you know, comparing the walk distance from this bus stop compared to the walk distance from people who park at the far ends of the parking area, you know, it's a lot shorter. It's a lot more convenient for people to ride the bus, get off here, walk to the lifts. Also, one of the other features at the Solitude stop is potential for a maintenance, or I'm sorry, a two-stall garage for equipment storage for snow removal. So that keeps potentially a grader and a plow or a grader and a front end loader in the upper part of the canyon. So, you know, they can assist with snow removal on those snowy days.
And the exact location of that bay is probably going to change. That's a minor detail.
Mhm.
It's just gonna move on the other side of the building. And here's the rendering for Brighton. So on the right side is kind of, you're looking up the bus lane. And then on the left side, you can see it's on that left side. You can kind of see where the bus lane goes in and then it comes back out. Have worked really well with Brighton on this, and they've been really, you know, accommodating that we are overlapping with their parking lot. And they will be losing some parking, but I think they see that this is a benefit to them
Yeah.
and, you know, a way that they can expand their user base.
One of the adjustments that was made to this location was on the far north side of the structure that's shown there is an actual exit for that part of the parking area. That was something that Brighton Ski Area requested specifically to maintain some of the flow out of their parking lot through the north side of the proposed bus stop.
And how, will that be a priority installation out of the project? Because, you know, having experienced that over in recent years, I mean, that has been such a mess on the weekends. It's gonna be like.
You mean the bus lane or the?
Having a dedicated bus lane
Yeah.
that wraps the inner circle and then, you know.
It is, yeah, it is definitely a priority because, like I said, we see a huge travel time savings and that equates directly to cost towards the bus service. So,
I mean, the buses couldn't even get in to pick people up,
Mhm.
right? So.
and so if you're gonna sit in the traffic, why would you not sit in the traffic in your own car?
Right. So
Right,
this
yeah.
is so wonderful.
Right, yeah, and that's what we were aiming for, is where are those pinch points where you see large backups, where we could easily create a bus lane. There are some property impacts, but like I said, no homes are taken.
And
It's been
forgive
a
me
while.
for being late, but
Yeah.
had you already mentioned any kind of timeline, or will that be?
Yeah, so we hope to have a decision in the spring and we hope to move forward pretty quickly after that.
Is there funding dedicated yet?
Yeah, so we have about $200 million. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah. If you want to go to the next slide, here's where we talk about tolling. As I mentioned, it's probably going to be variable tolling. We'll see what, gets people to change their behavior, because we don't want to make money on this. We're not going, we don't plan on bonding with this revenue. We're trying to change behaviors, and we're trying to manage the roadway. There will most likely be exemptions, both for residents who live in the toll zone as well as people who work in the toll zone.
Are you looking at types of tolling? Are you talking? Your car gets a picture taken of, and then you have a QR code to scan and go on and pay? Is that what you're probably looking at?
Yeah, something electronic. With how much, it probably can't be like I-15. Because on I-15, you say, oh, you either are two people or you pay for the little box and you get told. But so many people, it's the only time they come up, 3 times a year because they're coming from out of state. Or, they only go up a few times a year because it's just a family, who buys day passes. And so it most likely will be something, similar to, a picture gets taken, you get sent a bill, you can sign up, for an account, so you just see it come in your email, but it will have to be something less intrusive, because we don't want to have a toll booth that creates traffic.
Stops traffic.
Yeah. One of the big questions we keep getting and through the comments is the exemptions. Someone asked, I was just in Salt Lake County, and they asked, well, what about like firemen? And I was like, yeah, we probably should expand the definition of employees to make sure we don't say only these people in the EA. We say these are probably who will get exemptions, and we're not going to cut someone out just because they weren't mentioned in the EA, if it makes sense to give them an exemption. So here's the cost estimate. The vast majority of the investment is in the mobility hub. It's right around $200 million for the mobility hub area, which is in your city. And so, I want this to be an investment that works for everyone. I want it to be an investment that works for UDOT, for the city, as well as, for the community.
Is that including, oh yeah, so that's including the interchange.
It is, yeah, that includes the interchange. So there's some overlapping costs here, which is why there's a negative right at the bottom. Some of these costs were accounted for in Little Cottonwood, so we didn't want to double count the numbers. So the total that we're proposing is 144 million, but if you add back the 114, it's right around 250. And for the final cost, we'll have to see, these are more recent costs, but the Little Cottonwood ones are older, so the cost may increase due to inflation. Maybe it'll decrease.
So 1% of that goes to us.
Oh, is that the
I
local?
heard that somewhere.
The local match. Yeah, so like I said, the vast majority of it is actually the infrastructure spending in your city. So right now we're in the public comment period. December 3rd, January 12th is the UDOT comment period. We're asking for your input on the potential impacts of the proposed action, the proposed mitigation of the proposed action, as well as the USDA Forest Service decisions.
By January 12th.
By January 12th. Go to the next slide. The Forest Service.
So we have a slightly different comment period. We're a cooperating agency. UDOT is the lead agency. Forest Service has a few decisions to make that are really specific to Forest Service lands. We would make decisions on whether to issue special use permits to UDOT to construct and operate the 2 new transit stops at the ski areas. We'd also be making decisions on whether to allow the reconfigurations of those mid-canyon bus stops at Cardiff and Spruces. Silver Fork is actually within UDOT right of way, so that is not a Forest Service decision. And then adding the bus only priority lane is also one of the decisions that is within the Forest Service decision space. So the Forest Service has notice and comment regulations that allow for a 30-day comment period, and the regulations say it cannot be extended. So we have to observe that 30-day comment period. And we started ours on the 11th, and it goes until the 9th of January, December 11th to the 9th of January. For people who want to participate in our pre-decisional objection process, they need to submit comments regarding Forest Service decisions within that time frame. If they have other comments to make and they comment outside of that time frame, that's great. We'll still consider those comments, and it'll help us to refine our decision for sure. But that is why we have a slightly different comment period than UDOT does.
Thank you so much for your time. If you have any other questions, we're here to answer them.
So just a little bit more on timeline. So we have till this, our January 11th to submit comments.
Yeah, January 12th for us and 9th.
And then you said 30 days after that.
No, that is the.
That is
30-day
the 30
period.
days. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what's the
Yes.
timeline from there?
So from there, one, we have to consider all the comments. We're making any revisions that may be necessary to the EA. And then we hope to have a decision by spring of 2026. So it kind of depends on the comments, right? We might have to take a while to consider comments, or if they're all generally supportive and there's only minor changes or no changes, it could be faster. But you know, it most likely will be a few months.
Okay. And then after you review the comments, then is there a period where you have to wait for people to see you?
There is a 150, UDOT has a 150-day statute of limitations, I think is the right term. The Forest Service has like 7 years. I can't remember the exact, it's a long time.
It's a long time.
50 days, 7 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Ultimately, people can litigate once implementation starts, or they can object to begin with. Once we release a draft decision, that objection review and resolution period is about 90 days after a draft decision is put out for the Forest Service. So that would be after UDOT's decision, the Forest Service would have an opportunity to release a draft decision. There's about a 90-day time frame to resolve any objections that may come out during that time. So that's the Forest Service timeframe. Unfortunately, litigation, if it does happen, would result or would come about after the objection process.
Okay, so you're more than likely spring of 26.
Yeah, and then from there, we have to weigh, risk of litigation versus the benefit of moving forward.
Right.
And hopefully no one sues.
There isn't, I thought there was a time period where they couldn't sue after.
For UDOT, that's
For
100.
UDOT, but okay.
Yeah, for Forest Service decisions, it's much longer. There is a period, but it's like a very long time.
Yeah.
We consider implementation being the start of the period where people could start to litigate. So what is implementation? Well, there are a lot of different things on Forest Service that would indicate or would mark the point at which implementation starts.
Okay.
So,
And that's just like the NEPA regulations and laws are very complicated and they're different for each individual. Like we have different agencies that we're working under. They're working under USDA, we're working under DOT. And so we have totally different regulations, which is why there's these weird discrepancies between our periods.
And I knew this at one time period to build the mobility hub and order the buses, 2 years.
Right around 2 to 3 years. Yeah,
2 to 3.
hopefully 2, but
And in reality, you need that before
yeah.
this will all work.
It's really hard to operate, like it's really hard to make the buses effective. Because as like USDA has seen, they've added the Canyon service and it's been good, but they're not seeing, they added, it's hard to say exactly how much more they added, but they added quite a bit more service and didn't get a ton more ridership. And most likely that's because there's nowhere to park. All the park and rides are full. Unless you're taking tracks to get on to ride the whole way, that's still a possibility, but not everyone's going to do that. And so what we see as the main pinch point is parking. So we need to be able to provide more parking and then we can increase the bus frequency. And those two need to go hand in hand. Otherwise it's
under USDA or the Interior.
so
USDA.
yeah, they're USDA.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that Forest Service is underneath USDA.
Oh,
It,
I thought you were in the Interior Department.
Most land management agencies are, Forest Service is an odd one that way.
it's like a historical thing. It's about managing forests. So you're
Yeah.
kind of managing agriculture
Yeah.
rather than,
Land management.
Mhm.
yeah.
I know the city of Cottonwood Heights has formally suggested in letters to UDOT over probably at least, well, I think it started with Mayor Peterson, so that would have been 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And has requested serious consideration of regionalized parking. As opposed to only, everybody thinking that they drive to the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon. And I'm wondering if UDOT, is there a reason why that doesn't seem to be taking wings in terms of lowering the congestion that comes into the canyon, lowering vehicle miles traveled and the benefits that it might bring for people
Right.
to leave their cars further away.
I mean, I think the main consideration, because it was looked at as part of the low comedy EIS, it comes down to cost. If you're gonna run, so like, say you wanted to have this, the part of the reason why bus service is attractive is the frequency. And you see that when you get to 15 minutes or better, that's when people start to say, I'll use that. Because if you miss the bus, 30 minutes is kind of a long time. And it's almost like it's like a mental barrier that people have, where if you have to say it's only 15 more minutes or less, you're like, that's fine. But if you say it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you say, eh. And so if you're gonna split, say you're gonna spend the same amount of money on this bus service, but you split it 3 ways, 4 ways, you're gonna cut that service in half, in quarter. And so then all of a sudden it's a 1 hour frequency from 4 places versus a, 15-minute frequency from 1 place. And so we want to work with UTA, and that's where I think we're trying to fit the model to the right agency, right? Like if UTA can provide bus routes year round, all the time to the mobility hub that people can ride, day in, day out to go to work, to go to school, to go where they want to go. That's what we should do. And they should just continue to run those during the winter season. And then UDOT should come in and run whoever should come in and run this service that only operates in the winter. So that way you're creating, instead of having this seasonal service that starts to just run buses all throughout the valley or wherever those points would be, it just doesn't
But canyon recreationalists are mostly interested in Fridays and Saturdays and holiday Mondays. All right, what did I just say? Mostly Saturday, Sunday, and holiday Mondays, and so even in the hiking season and other times. So it's not really, I don't understand how the intermodal hub would really serve commuters. It seems like it's being set up to serve those who want to get up in big little and hot.
Well, there's a lot of UTA service that runs weekly throughout the valley, right? I have a route that goes right outside my house, and it's going all week.
Yeah.
And so, whether you're going to want to ride it on Saturday morning or, whenever, then that's what we're going to work with UTA to get more routes going to this mobility hub.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is I think riders come to the intermodal hub on a Saturday or Sunday, whether they're hiking or skiing. I don't see it similar to the local routes you're referring to, because those people have other agendas. They're either working or doing.
Right. And I think that's what I'm saying is that you don't, from a financial perspective, to try to allocate to have a 15-minute bus service go 4 different places in the valley and then come all the way up the canyon. It's not financially feasible. You could spend that much money, but at a certain point you have to weigh how much money you're spending versus how much benefit.
But if it was, I guess maybe you didn't understand. So one transfer, from West Valley parking lot at the mall there, underutilized parking. So I'm not suggesting that there be additional $1 million hubs built. What I'm talking about is people being willing to make one transfer. So they take one direct bus that gets on I-215, comes to the intermodal hub, and they make one transfer to the bus to Solitude or the bus to Snowbird.
Right. But if you're trying to spend the same amount of money, you then have to cut the service you're providing in the canyons to allow to then have that service that goes a really long way out to West Valley. So that's where I see it as more you want to increase the regional transportation that everyone can use. And then the side benefit is you can also take that transportation to go to the ski bus, to go to the mobility hub to get on a bus. Instead of just having to be a ski only valley bus, where that's why UTA went away from that model. They used to have buses that went downtown. They used to have buses that went all over the place that were seasonal, ski only. And it's, it just depends on how you want to spend that money. Do you want to spend it on service that's for, everyone in the valley, or do you want to spend that money on service that's for the ski resorts?
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about the winter season, but could the Cardiff and the Spruces buses be used during the hiking season?
Yeah, so we've looked at it and it didn't quite fit the study, right? So when we looked at the purpose and need from UDOT's perspective, the road works in the summer, right? Outside of key times like leaf season, and it's just not a frequent issue. But what is a frequent issue is parking, right? There's not the parking capacity there's in the canyon. And so we see it as like a separate action
Okay.
is summer. And it's a slightly more complicated environmental analysis. So we saw it as like, hey, look, let's do the winter. That's what the need is now from UDOT's perspective. But we can then consider the summer and see what we want to do with that. Because yeah, like we're gonna have a bus fleet that's going to be running the canyon.
And the second thing is to give you an opportunity to tell people what they could expect at the public meeting tomorrow night at Canyon View Elementary.
Sure. So the same thing, but a lot more. So there'll be me and I can't even remember Erica or Terry. How many people from the team will be there tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can come and talk to the person who wrote the section about, what you're interested in. So we'll have a board, we have like 20 something boards that are go into detail, a lot more detail on everything. So if you've read the EA or if you've seen something that you're like, hey, I want to know more about that. That's why you should come out, because you can get 5 minutes of their time that's ask your exact question and then hopefully write a comment about it.
That helps me a lot, because I was thinking it was one big meeting, one big presentation.
No.
We'd be better off to come tomorrow night, talk to the people and then submit written comment. Is that what you prefer?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't quite go over that whole thing. We take comments in a million forms. So we take comments in mail, hand delivered, online comment, email, phone, text. Any form of comment is great. You can send us, I got a lot of handwritten drawings last time, which was nice. I have a couple that they weren't for it, but they were really nice drawings, so I kept them. But that's why we want you to come out, is to come out and talk to the people who actually wrote these sections and, ask your question and then write a really informed comment of saying what you want to say.
There'll be somebody there tomorrow who's also taking a verbal comment, right?
There will be a court reporter tomorrow taking verbal comments as well.
So I'll give you another opportunity to pitch. What's your preferred way to receive a comment?
Right now, so I'm I guess just beating myself up. I signed up to get alerts when anything came in, except for mail. But I mean, it's really great. I like when I get emails straight to me, usually they're negative. But I signed up to get the comments that are just going to the website and they're usually positive. So I think there's anything that's informed, like, chain emails are okay, but when we look at it from like a study team, what I want to know is like, what do you think? And so if you send a chain email, whether it's in support or against, it's less effective, I think, because it's just kind of saying the same thing that 10 other or 100 people already said. And like, this isn't a vote, right? It's not about like, how many people can we get to say the thing it's more about if you can point out something like the Salt Lake County Commissioner did or council member did and said, hey, what about firemen? And we're like, oh, yeah, we didn't really say that or specify that. Maybe we should add a sentence or add a word. That's what really helps us. We've seen that through the scoping period. There was a lot of people who came out and said, hey, like, have you thought about people who can't pay by credit card for a toll? I was like, well, no, I hadn't thought about that. But that's something that then we can say, write a sentence to say, like, we will look into methods to pay by cash. So that's really what we're looking for.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I would put one more caution on your timeline. Knowing who you're working with could be a decade before you start that mobility hub. So you can, just.
Yes, yeah, we've been working with the owners, 3 project managers back. Prior to me, we're working with them. And so we understand that they're challenging but we're also, really happy to have the work relationship that we do working with them. And, however we move forward, we're going to have to keep the project moving.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks,
Yeah,
Terry.
thank you.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I hope to see you all at the.
You're not staying, Devin?
No.
We're done around 8:30.
I guess, the state's gonna pay.
Okay, great. We're gonna move on to item number 4, which is our staff reports. Item 4A is entitled Adopting a Supplemental Name for a Streets Segment. I know that there's been discussions with the council and there's been some changes, so I'll just let our council member, our city manager, rather, Jared, give us some background and then we'll move on.
On the street name.
Yes.
So there was there was a proposal to rename portion of 2300 East from Bengal to Fort Union. Just as an honorary name, not to rename it, not to readdress or anything like that. It's just an honorary name for the street to kind of reciprocate what Young Sugu did for us in Korea. So we're gonna go through and kind of show you the video that's been shown, and Matt can talk about this better because he loves this stuff. They've been showing this video all throughout the
Yeah.
district
Mhm.
for months now.
Yeah.
So,
Or over the next year. Yeah, so let me give some additional background. So, you know, as I look back, I think the one thing that I've just had an impression on is I hope that when I am done here, I hope that I've left a legacy where we are better connected as neighbors, where we create better experiences for one another, and then we have a better fabric that we collectively have together, and that's super important to me. And so I'm grateful for my colleagues for supporting this effort to try to, especially in this time with political discord and vitriol that's happening, it's a pretty amazing experience to connect with brothers and sisters around the world who aren't talking about politics, who aren't talking about partisanship or any of these things, and it's purely on a human level of connecting. And I think we saw this last year with when they came over here and we had those veterans and the kids that were saying thank you for your service. It was just a really moving experience. And so as we went over there, they really outdid anything that we could ever really do. The whole street in a city of 3 million people was lined with banners, just congratulating us. The University of Utah Asia campus had, you know, big festivities and congratulations, and the students were so excited about it. It's a requirement, actually, the U of U Asia campus to come to Utah for a semester. So there's 600 students there. A lot of Utahns are starting to, more of them are going, but there's 600 students that are every semester they're transitioning over here to Utah. And this is now kind of a something, Cottonwood Heights is something that they're excited to see and that they know about. Actually, this last Saturday, they had a big alumni event in Seoul at the War Memorial. It's equivalent to doing an event like at the Lincoln in DC. And they had a huge projection and it said, you know, Cottonwood Heights City, Utah, and it had pictures and with the U of U, and it had hundreds of people there that were clapping and celebrating this partnership. So when we went over there, it was a huge deal, and they, you know, had a big dinner and they played this video, a little promo to us, and you had Mongolia, you had China, you had, I mean, China, how many people were in that city?
80 million.
80 million was the other sister city. You know, we're right around that. In the Philippines, and people were coming up and just were super excited about what they saw. And they were in awe of the beauty of our state and the beauty of our city and these canyons that we have. It was absolutely moving for them. So, you know, as we came back, I wanted to see what could we do to just show that gratitude back to them. And so what the proposal is, and we'll go through some of these things as supplemental, but what the proposal is right there on the corner in the sidewalk somewhere, to pick one of those squares just to put a little plaque in the sidewalk. Just honoring the moment, honoring the partnership and the relationship. And as I've told my colleagues here, you know, I don't want this to be something that is a burden to the city, to the budget. And so I'll donate up to 10K of whatever it costs to cover that expense. I was talking to Jared and he's like, oh, that will definitely not hit that amount, which I hope not. But we want to make it simple, and it's an honorary naming, and it's something that can just celebrate that moment. And the historic committee was super cool. They put a Korean flag and a little memento from the sister city relationship in the time capsule that they put over by the elementary school, which is neat. So, you know, and I know there's other ideas, and I'd love for others to share on ways that they can make this meaningful, but also meaningful to our city, and bring more people here and have people spend more time here and spend more money here, of course, but to make this a really meaningful hub. So let's just play this. It's a couple minutes, but this is what 3 million people are seeing.
Oops, sorry. I don't know if I'll play the sound. If I do, we'll find out. Very sound, Matt. So we
Share it.
That's just all.
hold on. Let me reshare it.
Reshare.
I forgot about that.
We got this.
I forgot to, I had to click that.
Make sure it's down to the right.
That was a little jumpy. It's on our YouTube channel if you want to watch a smoother version.
We have some pictures here.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, and I'll show this as well. So they put a plaque in their street, but then they also put street signs all along this big boulevard. And then they presented this really just beautiful thing as a gift to our city to just remember commemorative moment as the plaque for the naming of Cottonwood Heights Road in a city in South Korea.
So let me just add a little bit of context as well. And I hope that as I move on, that you all will consider this. You know, as we, it was interesting, in our retreat a couple of years ago is when we first talked about forming a sister city. And without any realization that something would ever happen in Korea. But the reason for that even being on the retreat was being other cities around that I had visited that had sister city relationships. And so we put it on there. And then as the opportunity came to engage with Yeonsugu and Incheon in Korea, and the work that went into that, one of the things that was made very, very clear from Yeonsugu was they weren't interested in just a name, calling us a sister city for namesake and not doing anything else. They were interested in exchanges and business collaborations and in actually enhancing, understanding between cultures and it's why they invite their sister cities once a year to their festival and they treat you like royalty. And it's why they wanted to come here to see our community. And so more than just name only of having a sister city, it was a relationship to forge relationship or an opportunity to forge relationships, to see what they did for a 35,000 residents community, to put our flag out on their city.
Yeah, so
hall.
our city flag is permanently flying at their city hall,
To
365.
to
It's
put,
pretty neat.
to read, you know, even in an honorary status, a street that is traveled by millions of people, not hundreds and thousands like our streets. From all the way from their city hall to
The global campus, which you've got,
the Asian
you've
campus.
got 10 premium American universities that's where it leads to.
There's their plaque that's in their street that's right, if you go back.
And then our city flag is on every one of their signs.
So I just want to just say, I'm a little disappointed in some of the pushback to do something small like we were talking about on Honorary Street, and that's okay. But I hope that the council moving forward will maybe look at things that you know, we had a city of 350,000 people that wanted to engage with us. They could have easily stubbed their nose at us and said, go talk to a city of 35,000. And yet they were willing to engage and put our name out there that I don't think there's any way in the world we could match. But I think more needs to be done than putting a plaque in a sidewalk. And I hope that you will reconsider, and whatever steps you feel like you need to go through to get there, I hope that you'll reconsider. At least talk about it, because on their end, they see us as a partner. And if we want to be seen on our end as just a name that we have a sister city, I guess that's an option too.
The other thing that I'll add is, and I want to talk to Jared about this, but we will take this to one of our citizen committees, and I think either the Historic Committee or the Arts Council. I think you could make arguments for either one. I don't know. I'm going to talk with Jared, and I love your advice, and probably the staff that work on those committees. But my point is to get them to help design it. I think it's great to have these projects and involve them. It's great to see things come to fruition, and we'll get them to give a thumbs up on it and move forward.
One of the things that I discussed with Councilmember Holton was the fact that we need citizens involved in this.
Yeah.
It is a critical thing to not just say, we're doing this. We need residents' input, and our committee, we have committees to be able to do that, to be able to take the charge and to share this information with folks so that they're not saying, well, they're just gonna do whatever they wanna do.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could have a racetrack from Korea. And it doesn't matter to me, as long as residents are involved.
Yeah.
To get in, and it does have to be continuous. I don't want it to die on a vine either.
Yeah.
I want this to be something that can continue, people can continue to have ideas about how to elevate this. So that the awareness is there, that we are a sister city, to the mayor's point. But I want to make sure our residents are involved.
100%. So we'll definitely do that. And what we'll probably do is we'll work with one of those committees, and then we'll bring back whatever it's going to look like to the group and go from there.
The first thing looks like, we're not, like I said, we're not done, right?
Whatever. Yeah. That's what I think.
And there's been a call to do events at our town center and for programming. I had mentioned to you that one of the best things we could do is a Korean festival. And we could involve the Korean Federation, we can do so many things, but I'm in agreement with Councilmember Newell that we don't do this to residents, we do this with residents.
Amen.
And so I appreciate you willing to step up. I think it's beyond generous.
Thank you.
That you're considering that, but we're not saying that we want to sever the relationship. None of us knew when you proposed the sister city what it would cost. And it's a really challenging to compete with the resources that they have. And so we want to do what we can do, but I really appreciate your openness in trying to do something.
Yeah.
And working with us to find out something.
Well, and I love your ideas was fantastic about doing a Korean festival at Hillside. I think we're going to look for that programming, and frankly, maybe it's the beginning of multiple cultural events there and communities coming together, and all the food and the fun and the excitement. I think that would make it one heck of a destination for our residents and for those around. And you've got this initiative that people are excited about, and I hope that others come along after me and with me and bring other initiatives that help with programming. And there's so many different groups in this state but I think we can do some really amazing things. And all it really takes is someone that's got the guts to say, we're gonna do it, right? And step up and take an idea and actually act on it. And I think that also benefits the development overall and makes people come here and spend more time and more money and so.
Well, I also have a few opinions on this. I think that it would align with the things that are stated in our master plan, certainly in our Fort Union Boulevard plan, which is tree-lined streets. And perhaps instead of monies being put into a fancy plaque in the ground, what if we planted some ginkgo biloba or some kind of Korean derivative of a tree and beautified some portion of 2300 East? That to me aligns with what has already been stated in our city plans, and would add value. The other thing is that I think the people that live along 2300 East, you know, if a street's going to be renamed near where they live on, and I realize you don't plan to put in new street signs, I think that they should be particularly drawn into this because they may not even know that we have a sister city. You know, I mean, I think that it's already been stated, so I won't overstate that. But, you know, in a time when we have trouble coming up with the money to do the things that we know residents are interested in, which we've found in surveys, safer streets, more crosswalks, more sidewalks, the fact that we put $16,000 into the city sister out of the general funds this year was a surprise to me because the pledge a year ago when this started was that there was not going to be a fiscal note tied to a sister city program. So those are some of the concerns that I have. I believe in cultural exchanges. I think all those are beautiful concepts. But I think we have to, as a council, stay on task with what the city is tasking us to do. And that is to, you know, do things that benefit the larger community.
Sure. So let me address a couple things there. Yeah, so we ended up having from the community, we had about $35,000 donated for that effort. And it was a initial kickoff, which there's no request of any kind. I don't have a request of any resources going towards this effort. It was a way that we could kind of kick it off appropriately. And as far as this goes, the reason why, and I appreciate you talking to me about this idea about planters and such. This is a donation from me. This is, as I said to Jared, upwards of $10,000. This is not coming from city resources. This is purely a donation. And so as much as I would love to see the beautification of that street, and I would love to see some of those Korean plants and other things, I do know that that would add a cost. That would add a cost to, I don't know how you get water to it. I don't know what that looks like. My intent is to honor the moment with gratitude and thanks. And it doesn't really go much beyond that. If there was an appetite to do more, I would entertain that, and I'm happy to donate towards that cause. But I think that would go beyond probably the initial scope and cost of this, and probably would have an impact to city resources, which that was never the intent. And so that's not the intent. And so this is really a one-time thing to honor the moment. So happy to take any other thoughts or feedback, but that's my approach. I'm wanting to make it as positive and as least level of complication and hardship at all.
So I think we have consensus to move forward plaque.
Mhm.
So, yep, so
Okay.
let's go that way.
So the action item tonight, we have to vote no, and then we'll start talking about the other things, right?
Yeah, so we'll still need a motion.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll motion for what the proposal is.
Okay.
And then we'll follow that, if that's okay. So I'll just motion that we amend it to approve a donation for honoring this with a plaque in the sidewalk, working with one of our communities committees.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
the
That works.
clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Item B is a general plan water element discussion. So Jim, hopefully you don't need 20 minutes because we don't have 20 minutes, but
I can be as quick as you want.
yeah, I want it to be quick.
Okay, so I'll just cruise through this really fast, so I'll make sure my screen. So as you know, a few weeks ago, we're updating the general plan, and as part of that, there's a chapter specific to water. And a few years ago, the city received a grant from the Utah. Oh, I can't remember which department it is. I think it's probably the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, to help fund the updating of our water chapter of the general plan. This is in response to Senate Bill 110, which requires cities to amend their general plans to address these four main things specific to water. Primarily how the development patterns, both existing and future, affect water demand. So that's what this chapter focuses on. This is the mission statement that was in the draft provided in the packet. Again, regionally, we're in the Jordan River Basin. And I think we're all familiar with how the regional water system works with the mountains and the Great Salt Lake and its importance. Salt Lake Department of Public Utilities is the entity that is really over the water distribution for the city of Cottonwood Heights. Here they've outlined a goal. Salt Lake Department of Public Utilities has outlined a goal to reduce per capita water use from 179 gallons per capita per day to 146 over the long term. That goes a little tricky to measure specific for Cottonwood Heights because we don't have data specific to our city. That's for the entire Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities service area. So we're just captured as a portion of that. Again, this is a zoomed in view of where the water comes from in the city. So Salt Lake City serves primarily most of the city. There's a small portion to the west that's serviced by Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. Again, primarily we're built out. So most of our efforts will be through educating and promoting the efficient use of water to residents and businesses. There's a few strategies, and these are outlined in the goals. So conserving water, both indoor and outdoor use, that can be done through landscape ordinances, updating plumbing fixtures, education and outreach to help educate folks of how they can conserve water. I think that's probably the biggest area that we could influence the water consumption in the city. Partnerships with other programs, and then any future growth, we can adopt ordinances or other standards to help minimize water use through landscape standards. So these are the four goals outlined in the plan. Again, very focused on education, outreach, voluntary conservation. We also think it's important the city lead by example. So any city facilities, as we're updating or changing things, that we also respect the water resources and implement water-wise practices where possible. Strengthen collaborative efforts with Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities. Again, they're the legal entity controlling the water, but I think we can have a greater voice in how that relationship works. And then lastly, integrating water conservation into our land development and redevelopment processes. So there's a 5-minute version of but what I have here. So the Planning Commission did review this last night at a public hearing, and it was favored to the council with a unanimous vote to adopt. So our timeline is the end of the year, really, to meet the state statute. But as we continue with the general plan update, we can continue to update this chapter and adopt a more revised version later this year if you all think that's appropriate.
And this is a voting item as well.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you expediting that. And now take whatever time you had for the spring tree sale discussion and cut it in half and move it again.
Got it. So
This is an easy one.
yeah, so this one's pretty easy. So every year the city has looked at kind of sustainability initiatives and what the city can do to help on that front. Something that we've done I don't know for how long, the last few years at least, we've done a sapling sale in the spring, usually around Arbor Day, last weekend in April. Where the city purchased, 75 to 100 trees, that the public can then purchase and plant in their yards. It's common that we have some leftover trees that Public Works can then use to, put on city facilities. So our question is this something the city council is interested in participating in again this year? I think it's a few $1,000s, and I could probably find somewhere in the budget that,
I think we're pretty close to breaking even on it every year, so.
yeah, so it's not a huge expense, but I think the public enjoys it and it's.
I think I appreciate it.
My only ask is, I know that when PTOS came, that they had a request that if there were some of those surplus trees, they could potentially work with Matt and Public Works and identify some places in some of the parks. It was one of the, I think it was a budgetary item that they had in their last presentation. There was a small amount for that, and instead of allocating some funds for that, we might be able just to work with Matt with some of the surplus. So just keep that in your mind.
Yeah, and I guess leading up to that time, if everyone's agreement that we carry forward with that program, we'll do some marketing and get the word out, just get folks excited about it. And then I think right now, within the next few weeks, we'll have to purchase the trees so that they're ready and available in April. So
I think you've got a consensus to move forward.
And again, these are the drought tolerant trees, correct?
these are whatever trees we want to buy. So there's a list of trees that are approved for the city. But we can look through it and be strategic in how we purchase or what we purchase, and we'll all work with Matt and Public Works to make sure that we're buying trees that people want and that are helpful to the city.
I think that's important, when we go through being water wise to have
Right.
drought tolerant trees in addition to that.
Mhm.
And there's some beautiful drought tolerant trees that work in park strips and all that stuff. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Okay, the last item under staff reports is the mine shaft road access policy. So I'm gonna let Jared, our city manager, give you a little bit of background, Chief Russo as well, and Shane, our attorney. So they're not, after multiple attempts at lobbying by myself and Councilmember Burrell, there are not 3 votes to move forward with this, so I'm not gonna waste a lot of time here. So I know Councilmember Burrell and myself are in favor, and then the other 3 are not. So it's still a voting item that we'll have to, vote no on, I guess, if you're inclined to vote no. But Jared, why don't you talk about it real quick? I don't want to spend a lot of time as well, since we're not going to be able to move forward with it.
Yeah, so there's a request just to allow access into the canyon from Mine Shaft Road. As you know, right now, Mine Shaft Road is closed by PD. We do allow people to turn westbound
During
during canyon closures.
canyon closure or
Yeah.
traction night
All right,
days.
that's a good point. During traction days, it's closed to people accessing the canyon. They are allowing people to turn west off of Mine Shaft Road, I believe, right now, to access school and work and everything else, but keeping the eastbound on there closed so that we're not bypassing the traction control stations that they've got set up for those days. We took a look at it. We're still not completely sure that Shane dug into it pretty well and thinks it might be a viable option, but we'd still probably have to work with UDOT since the Canyon Road is a UDOT road. And they actually control the access onto it. So even if we move forward with it, there would still be some discussion, I think, that would have to happen as well with UDOT. So, brief enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Any other comments?
I just want to make sure I'm really crystal clear that the residents that come down Mine Shaft and strictly want to turn west, they don't need to have a sticker or anything. Your officers flag them to go west.
Right.
Okay,
That's certainly the plan.
and I would like to understand from my council colleagues what as briefly as you can, I think the public has a right to understand better what the objection is. I've heard from a few of you, but I'd particularly like to understand for Council Member Newell what your objection is to allowing for residents to turn eastbound instead, because I want to make sure everybody at this table understands that when they are not able to go eastbound up the canyon, they make a U-turn, they have to drive in the wrong direction for about nearly a mile. then they have to come out onto SR 210 into what is complete log jam and sit in a log jam to have the eventuality of being able to come from where they started. So they might take, I don't know, could it be 30 or 40 minutes to make like a circle to get back to the edge of their neighborhood in order to proceed up the canyon. I just want to make sure that the people at this table, this is a District 4, it's in my district. I think so I'm trying to understand what the objection is to allowing people. I mean, it would be the equivalent of for one of you driving in the wrong direction. Say you wanted to go on Creek Road, you'd have to drive north for 3/4 mile and finally get onto Creek Road 30 or 40 minutes later. So I just want to make sure everybody at the table, and then I'm sorry, but I really need to understand.
That's okay, yeah. Councilmember
For
Noel.
me, I don't see it as an equitable practice to allow somebody to do something and nobody else can. It's that simple. I believe that when we make policies, it has to be an equitable policy for all. And creating an advantage for a small group is not an equitable practice when you have others that would like to see benefit.
Well, I think those that want to cut through the Prospector neighborhood, I mean, it's been years since the CHPD has stopped those that would like to, talk about equity, that would like to drive through the Prospector neighborhood and get down through Mine Shaft. So we already don't allow anybody to drive anywhere they want. And I
was thinking to add to what Councilmember Newell was saying, we actually do have policies in place on Timberline where we have no parking, but we give passes to Timberline residents to go and park their car there. So they were giving them
But they're a permanent resident there and that space is divided for them, for that area.
No, it's a
to not
public
be
road.
obstructed. But not
Timberland,
to be, but not to be disrupted because it's at their private residence, right?
no.
no, they don't like so if you drive over, I didn't mean to jump in, but if you drive over near the Ferguson trailhead for about, I don't know, 1/3 of a mile in every direction from the Ferguson trailhead, it is posted that the public is not allowed to park on those curbs. And those are public roads.
Mm-hmm.
So those residents were given special permits that none of the public could park on a public road because they didn't like it and they felt that it was too congested.
So there was.
The previous administration under Mayor Peterson enacted that. Was that inequitable?
I would say it would probably fall within that for me.
That it's inequitable.
Yeah.
I personally find that inequitable. I would not have supported that had I been on the council at that time. But and I don't know how equivalent, but I'm just trying to understand,
I think in the interest of time, this could perhaps come back up, but I'm on board here. It's an exclusion to everybody else because anybody who lives further down Prospector would want to access that. So I don't know where we stop that. And living where I did on Austrian Way, I would probably come at the council and say, why didn't you give me that privilege too? That's why I moved to Cottonwood Heights, is to have access to the canyons. So I understand the backtracking, I understand, but it's an issue for every single one of us that there's congestion in the canyons. And so for me, I cannot grant this exclusion because to me, it doesn't actually, it should be an opportunity for all of us as Cottonwood Heights residents who moved here to access the canyons.
I respect those opinions. I think
Okay.
those are valid
thank you,
points.
thank you, Mayor.
So, anyway, anything you want to add, Councilmember Holton?
No, I will just say this. I had a conversation with the chief earlier and I did ask this one question. I said, so why this street and not this street?
Mhm.
And I didn't quite. Because man, if I lived on this street, I'd be super excited. If I lived on that street, I'd be pretty ticked. And I don't know how you. And so I guess the answer is I'm more than happy to talk about this again and kind of figure something out potentially. But when I asked the chief that, and chief, I don't want to speak for you, but I think it was, I don't know why. And I was like, well, then I don't know how I, feel like I'm going to just jump on that yet. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. the ability to have difference of opinion is a great thing in our country, so. So appreciate your
I
thoughts.
do agree with that.
And there, you know, in some countries, it's just mandated by the smartest person, which would have been me. So, you know, I'm just.
Wait, you go to BYU. Come on,
Glad I got that on the record, okay. Before I get out of here. The last item before we during our work session is a review of calendars, upcoming events, the Winter Lobby Arts Fest display rather. Goes till Monday, January 5th. The Lunar New Year celebration, Saturday, February 7th, 10 a.m. to noon here at City Hall. It's in February. Cozy Paint Night, Friday, February 20th. From 6 to 8 is at City Hall as well. Okay, if I could get a motion to close. We don't have anything to discuss in this meeting, in a closed meeting. So if we could get a motion to adjourn our work session and move immediately into the council chambers for our CDRA.
We can do.
Don't we have to vote?
Oh, you have to vote, you're right. So,
Yeah.
because the notice was.
So we'll need to move into there.
I motion to adjourn the work session
And immediately.
and immediately move into the council chambers to open the CDRA.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
I